Los Angeles, California. With 13 million people and over 1,000 emergencies a day, it's often referred to as the local news capital of the world. Video journalists have captured an unbelievable catalog of events.
To see what our members had to endure is very difficult.
This is almost like a movie. It's hard to believe that this was real life.
With our first on-scene heroes' perspectives, this is an insight into their most thrilling moments. In this episode, an out-of-control blaze tears through a crowded apartment block.
This is the biggest fire I've ever seen in my life.
Hungry bears prowl through suburban streets.
There's a lot of oohs and ahs.
Emergency responders see more than they wanted to.
There is that concern that this gentleman could fall at any time.
And the driver survives. See the unbelievable rescue. Americans like things fast. And with over 200,000 chain restaurants across the U.S., their food is no exception.
I mean, you gotta love a good drive-through story, right? Well, this one's just incredible.
It's just before midnight in Los Angeles, and one driver is about to regret his drive-through decision.
It's like gives a real, new meaning to the word drive-through. We managed to get the security camera footage. A guy lost control, launched up. You see the car coming in the distance, nose dives up in the air, smashes straight into the restaurant.
This is a very violent crash, high speed, hit into a building.
Two cars racing down the highway at high speeds lose control at the same time. One crashes straight into a fast food restaurant, and the other dangerously into oncoming traffic.
Street racing in Los Angeles these days, it's becoming an epidemic. We've seen cars doing donuts in the middle of the streets with their doors open. People hanging on the back, people getting thrown off, things being set on fire, fireworks being let off, people being hit, cars being destroyed. Street racing really is a problem, and the police really don't know how to battle it.
We respond to about 100 traffic-related collisions every single day in Los Angeles. Often when people think of the fire department, they just think we're there to fight fire. In reality, most of what we do is emergency medical services. Often the innocent bystanders are injured and even killed from people making a reckless decision.
A crash of this magnitude was devastating to that car. I mean, that's a nice car, but it was demolished. Just the weight of that thing hitting the building. You're not getting that car back. That's done. And somehow the two occupants got out.
I was shocked, but glad to see that they were alive.
This is a testament to how well cars are made these days, right? It's incredible.
In a miraculous outcome, there are no fatalities at this scene of destruction.
It's amazing that nobody was injured or there wasn't patrons outside, or otherwise this could have been a whole different story.
This could have been a fatal collision.
Can you imagine the outcome if that place was open? It would be devastating. I mean, it would be a completely different scenario. They wouldn't be arrested for street racing, they'd be arrested for murder.
Our next story takes us cross-country to the shores of Lake Michigan in Chicago. as police officers embark on a wild chase of 4 armed bank robbers.
These guys were armed suspects that took police on a wild chase.
Sometimes vehicles get away and we find them later. In this situation, the officers found the vehicle parked in a parking lot at the beach.
Okay, we're at the entrance where you enter in.
And officers took a closer look. They found that there was a loaded gun under the car along with a cell phone. I don't know why you would do that.
One suspect is apprehended and taken into custody.
Further investigation revealed that one of the suspects was still nearby. There is one thing that criminals have in common whenever they lead police officers on pursuits. They're willing to do whatever it takes in order not to be caught, including going for a swim.
The driver of the vehicle ran into the beach and they found him standing out in the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, look, you always see suspects doing bizarre, crazy things just to try to get away from police.
I think that he's probably just trying to blend in because what else was he gonna do?
Not sure if he thinks he's a good swimmer or what. He's going to try and swim to Cuba or Mexico.
Is he just gonna swim away? No.
It's quite funny. I meing, he's not carrying a gun, he's not hurting anyone, but he's just tormenting the police.
Put your other hand up, keep walking that way slowly.
Officers don't typically like to get wet. Those uniforms don't smell the best when they get wet.
I assume that this man was very cold, and probably why the troopers and officers didn't necessarily go in to try and arrest him either.
So the officer's gonna initially try to order him out. Hey, sir, why don't you come over here? You've had your run, it's over.
He ended up coming back out of the water and they arrested him and took him into custody.
Hands up, turn around. Hands up, turn around.
Police don't always catch the smart ones. It's the ones that try to stick around and blend in that typically get caught.
A swimming result. Coming up,
There is that concern that this gentleman could fall at any time.
And the guy's butt naked.
but first,
There's a lot of oohs and ahs.
It's a cute story.
in a sprawling city like Los Angeles, the news can take a wild turn.
So if it bleeds, it leads, and that's what's going to be breaking news. Robberies, homicides, but when we see Yogi the Bear and baby cubs, the entire city wants to watch.
Mama Bear takes her cubs out for a quick feed on Memorial Day. What a great story.
Bears are adorable. I've been out on so many of these stories, and we follow the bears, and there's a lot of oohs and ahs inside the news vans.
It's a cute story. Just seeing the mama bear walking around, going into the trash cans, feeding her cubs.
The city is growing, and it's growing on top of their territory. So naturally, these animals are going to want to get closer and closer to try and get food and water when they can't get it up in the mountains.
California's black bear population has increased to over 30,000 in recent decades, and potentially dangerous encounters are becoming more common in areas next to forests and parks.
A lot of the times when bears are roaming around residential neighborhoods, animal control will come in and they'll tranquilize them.
You don't want to see anything happen to these animals. Of course you don't, and especially when you have two little baby cubs following the mom.
In this case, Mama Bear was just feeding her cubs and she just went on her way.
For some reason, these stories on these wild bears get so many viewers.
See a great feel-good story like this with Mama Bear and her cubs? Everyone's going to run it.
In downtown Los Angeles, police and fire departments are faced with a much less cute, much more bizarre situation.
I mean, this would be one of the most bizarre scenes that I would arrive to.
As a news cameraman, if I heard a call like this come out of a man 10, 15 stories above downtown Los Angeles on scaffolding, I'm going to shoot straight down that freeway and get to that story.
The first thing I'm doing is a size up of exactly what's going on and think about any specialty equipment we're going to need, and then also starting to kind of develop a plan of how we're actually going to mitigate this incident.
It's 2 a.m. and city workers have reported a man aggressively throwing objects at them from construction site scaffolding. Police and firefighters have responded in force, but the man just climbs higher and higher. A video journalist captures the action.
So when the cameraman's obviously got on scene with this, he zoomed in on the suspect that was up on the scaffolding. And the guy's butt naked.
You know, arriving to a scene and seeing the suspect naked, I think it can be challenging for journalists to get on air with a straight face. But then you look at the severity of it. This guy could fall from this building and potentially die. So yeah, then it becomes a little more serious and you have to kind of get the giggling under control and realize that this is a human being in dire need.
Maybe he's suffering from mental illness, maybe having a nervous breakdown. He must be suffering from something pretty traumatic.
It would appear that there's some behavioral health issues, and we're definitely concerned with that.
This subject is possibly having a mental health crisis in addition to being under the influence of a controlled substance.
These bizarre incidences that could be quite comical at first, it actually tends to be really sad because they typically have a mental illness.
The fire department sets the bag below the scaffolding and attempts to contact the naked man from within the building. This first attempt fails and only seems to aggravate him more.
Scaffolding isn't exactly the most stable of construction styles, so there is that concern that this gentleman could fall at any time.
Coming up.
You see them try and pull him through the window, and he rejected them.
What is this person going to do next?
And
I'm praying that they find this animal alive.
in the early morning hours of downtown Los Angeles, a naked man climbing dangerously high through construction site scaffolding is making emergency responders extremely nervous.
You've got to wonder what's going through this guy's mind. He's standing up 10 stories high on scaffolding, butt naked, in the middle of downtown Los Angeles.
This guy could fall from this building and potentially die.
The news would definitely buy a story like this because it's bizarre. You don't see this every day.
When the station buys video from a stringer, then they'll use that video in the journalist's package.
They're going to blur it out, but they're still going to run the story because it's quite good.
This would be a top story.
Because he's naked. So the fire department get their resources in place there. They put down the blow-up mattresses on the street in case he does fall from that scaffolding.
One of the things we want to do right away as first responders is establish rapport with the patient and communication. They actually had a firefighter trying to get to the same level as the patient so we could try to talk the patient into coming down with that firefighter that was on the inside.
The fire department managed to get into the building and they were trying to talk him through the window, and at one stage you see them try and pull him through the window. And he rejected them.
This first rescue attempt is a fail and aggravates the man more.
I tried to pull him again, but the guy actually surrendered to the fire department. He went back through the window, and it was a happy ending.
I'm glad that he gave up and it ended safely.
After the rescue, The man was taken to a local hospital for evaluation. It's 7:30 p.m. in suburban Los Angeles, and emergency units are scrambling to a house fire. Video journalist Howard hears the call and arrives first on scene.
This is what I call pre-arrival. You're there before the fire department, you're there before the police, you're there before the paramedics. This is where I get my best stuff. I was there probably within 2 or 3 minutes of the call going out. Just happened to be right near my house. So by the time I got there, it's the peak of the fire. It is absolutely ripping. There is nothing stopping this thing.
Anybody else inside?
I roll up and the guy is coming out of the house. You can see the panic, you can see the stress. I mean, he is emotional. But to witness that and to be with him, and you are living those moments of complete and utter chaos. It's almost an honor, a privilege. Kind of makes you really empathetic.
I would run in there, grab my camera, and I'm gonna be filming that guy. That guy is super important. His emotions, everything that he's feeling.
It's something I love capturing on tape. You're telling that person's story. I know it sounds harsh, but it's some of my better content.
When you see people coming out of the house, the number one thing that we want to ask is anybody else inside?
Anybody else inside? Just my cat.
The gentleman said there were no other people, but his cat was in the house.
I sympathize with that man. That is such a scary situation, and I want to run in there and save that cat myself.
I'm wanting a good outcome. I mean, the money shot for me is him being reunited with his cat.
I don't see firefighters initially right away, and I don't know if they're going to be able to save that cat.
The fire department finally arrives, assessing the situation and gets to work putting out the fast-spreading blaze.
So we got to see the first arriving engine company on scene. As a fire service professional, all life is important to us.
I'm praying that they find this animal alive.
After 22 minutes of the firefighters tackling the flames, Howard hears something.
I hear a meow. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm filming another part of the house on fire. I managed to find the cat. I mean, I was pretty happy at that point, I gotta be honest.
This was a happy ending. They just saved that cat, and now this guy is just overwhelmed with joy that he didn't lose his animal.
We do film things that have unfavorable outcomes, but in this case, it turned out happy.
A happy ending for all. But not all fires are as simple to contain. Coming up.
This is the biggest fire I've ever seen in my life.
And then.
I mean, that car was absolutely destroyed. There's nothing left of it. This was a fire that I saw start from one small room and it exploded into 1 million square feet. This is the biggest fire I have ever seen in my life.
It's 1:13 a.m. in downtown Los Angeles, and a fire has completely engulfed an entire 7-story apartment complex. More than 250 firefighters arrive on scene in an attempt to put out the historically intense blaze.
It was an entire city block on fire.
This was a massive fire that caused freeways to be completely shut down.
You couldn't see a thing. It was setting fire to stuff across 9 lanes of highway.
This is a well-known fire called the Vinci Fire.
It's an entirely different experience when you're actually on the scene of a massive fire such as this.
I mean, it was so hot, the street signs were melting above the freeway. I'm trying to get the best shot. I actually remember having a red arm because I was too close.
An accelerant was found on scene during the investigation of the 750,000 square feet of debris.
Ultimately, this was deemed caused by an arsonist.
Somebody actually set this fire on purpose. But more surprisingly, there were no injuries. And I ended up having to go to court to testify against this person because I was there at the time it started.
The Los Angeles man responsible was caught and pleaded guilty, admitting to arson that caused more than $3.2 million in damage. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. It's 12:20 a.m., and a suspect in a Dodge Charger is attempting to elude police in a dangerous high-speed pursuit.
This was dramatic. This was a guy who was speeding down one of our Los Angeles freeways. The police were chasing him. He decided he was going to exit at a high rate of speed, smashed into a wall.
This is exactly why you shouldn't be running from the cops, because you're going to hurt somebody else or possibly kill yourself.
As soon as the officers get out of their vehicle, the first thing on their mind is rescue.
The guy's just put your life as an officer at risk by driving like he did, and now you're trying to help him?
Even though you're running from them, they're still going to save your life.
You don't know if that fuel tank or those fuel lines have been damaged, and you do see a little active fire underneath.
It's a ticking time bomb right now. He has literally got seconds to live.
Multiple highway officers race to get fire extinguishers, while several others attempt to free the man.
Once they realize that the subject is unconscious, their responsibility is to remove him from any danger that he may be in, which would be, at that point, the vehicle on fire.
If somebody's injured, you don't usually move them right away to prevent further injury. That car was on fire, and they had pretty much one option, and it was get that guy out of that car.
I mean, that car was absolutely destroyed. There's nothing left of it, and it's just a miracle that someone was able to get out of that.
The officers will get the subject away from the vehicle and then begin to provide whatever aid is needed.
There are unique instances where the patient can also be potentially under arrest. Sometimes they're even handcuffed to the gurney.
This suspect is extremely lucky.
Moments after the rescue, the car explodes in flames.
Officers, on a daily basis, are saving people's lives. They are heroes, without a doubt.
Yeah, there's some heroism right there.